That's one thing.
Well, I've seen more of you in the last 2 days than in any typical 2 or 3 weeks.
You're in trouble, are you? I don't know.
It's always a pleasure.
First comment needs in black and white.
Well, it depends on what you're seeing for right now.
It's all good. I know. I know. Some of them have sense of already. $800.
The difference is when you two come over, everybody knows you're here. Well, sneaks in and out.
What? It's so funny.
I don't know how to make those come together.
A minute.
It's kind of a compliment, Kristen. Sort of. Oh.
21.
Hopefully, what we.
Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda tonight is public comment. This would be your chance to bring something before the council. And this can be a subject that we're not discussing, you'd like to make us aware of. We will not be able to discuss that item tonight because by law, it has to be on our agenda for us to present it in public. Or if you have comments on any of the items tonight, there are no public hearings in the discussion tonight, so this would be your opportunity. Is there anyone who would like to address the council? Go ahead.
Hey, Mayor, my name is Logan Johnson with Right Development. I think we're the third item on the agenda.
Okay.
And our application is for a rezone request for a small parcel across the street from Walmart.
Okay.
And it went through the planning commission pretty smoothly, and we are anxious to hear council's feedback on it and their thoughts towards it. Just to clarify, we do have access secured with UDOT through a preliminary meeting. You know, that was something maybe council was curious about. And it's consistent with the general plan. And so we're hopeful that the council will be able to allow us to get this zone, and that would really empower us to go to our brokers and to find some great tenants for that spot. I believe it's also in the town center overlay already, if memory serves. So anyway, I just want to make sure that's said. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. We will consider that. You're also behind it.
Yes, my name is Carol Yamamoto. I live in Village. And I just want to hopefully bring back to the table the issue regarding the waste can, the recycle waste can and the $4 fee. Most of us don't have a place to put a second garbage can. And so I just want to bring that, so hopefully we get back to the table and we can discuss a little bit further.
Okay. That won't be tonight, but it certainly could be in a future meeting. Thank you. Anyone else? Last call. Okay. I will close public comments and we will dive into our planning items. Item C. The first item is review, discussion, and draft development agreement for Syracuse City and Costco Wholesale Corporation. This is so that you have a chance to look over the contract in its present form. If any changes come before we solidify the entire application, we will advise you that this is the chance to discuss the general application as written. Is there anything anybody wanted to bring up? Because we have talked about this over time, and I believe that it's reflective of all the things that we've presented to you in the past. Yes, Colin.
There are a couple of paragraphs in the development agreement that are still not fully negotiated. We're working on those. There are a couple of issues that have come up that Costco's attorney is going to propose language for. So as the mayor said, these are not the final agreements. They're pretty close, and there will be some changes before we adopt the final versions.
This one was from last October, right? So has it changed since then?
It's been updated several times since then, yes.
Like, it just says draft 10/28/2024. It seems
think
like
it's
it's
been
a newer
updated.
draft.
This would be as of, I think, a week ago.
Oh, yeah. Can we get that
We've been
updated?
actively- No, I think just the date on it is.
It's just the
I
date
think
that's
that's what
on
he's
there
asking
that's
for,
wrong.
us to update.
Yeah, and this says 10/28/2024. So I'm
Giant
pretty
across
sure
the
that
front.
was incorrect.
Yeah.
If this is as recent as you
Yep,
say.
the big orange letters are not correct,
Oh,
but it is the most current version of that 10/28 draft.
That should be an update with it as it goes.
Yes, my bad. Gotcha.
Other than that, are there any particular items you'd like to, because we will fix them. Okay. All right, well, that went surprisingly well. So we will continue with those discussions, and that project's going very well. Number 2 is review discussion draft interlocal tax sharing agreement between Gateway Public Infrastructure District Number 1 and Syracuse Redevelopment Agency pertaining to the Syracuse West Davis Corridor Gateway Community Reinvestment Area. As you know, we established a reinvestment area over the summer. That was a considerable amount of work. We also got approval for the Public Infrastructure District, which basically is the opportunity, and I'm saying it's not for your benefit, council, but for the public. This is an opportunity for us to use future taxes generated by this development that will be commercial, which will increase the property taxes significantly from farmland to agriculture to public commercial.
So,
And using that fund, we will pay back the infrastructure needed to make this project possible, which includes sewer, stormwater, some roads and trail as listed in the agreement.
so we break this down like, let's pretend it's kindergarten.
Okay,
From beginning, from start to finish, break down how this works.
okay, so happy to. What we've done is we have the opportunity to, the state has a process of community reinvestment agency. That is the current promotional language that the state has for us to create a district where it wouldn't be possible, it would be impossible financially to create the infrastructure on raw land that's needed. So we establish that area and we get an agreement with the other taxing agencies that will also tax on this property, that they will dedicate some of their future tax to pay for this infrastructure. Now, in our case, we went one step further and established a public infrastructure district. This is also another Utah law where if you have a zone that doesn't have the infrastructure, but it is in the community's best interest for us to gain significant taxes. For example, I think when I presented this to, say, the mosquito board, the taxes were less than $1,000 on this land. But within 2 years of this becoming commercial, it will generate $50,000 worth of taxes to support that district. That group, along with the other groups in question, have agreed to pledge 50% of the new tax. So they're already coming out ahead, but part of that new tax will go to pay for the water, the sewer, the roads, because those things are what's keeping this land from being developed in a way that it can produce these tax dollars. So that's what we're looking at right here. And this agreement is for the CRA to pay back the PID. The PID gets its money up front Because what it does is it goes out to a bond, sells a bond to a private entity, whoever that may be. They front the money and they get it back with interest over a long period of time, in this case, probably more than 20 years.
So when this was told to us, was that it made it, the PID made it so citizens could invest within their own communities by buying into the bonds.
Take the buy.
They
How does
could,
that
Buy a
work?
bond.
That,
Yeah,
is that part of that for them?
it depends on how the PID, which is actually a separate governmental entity, so it's its own board. They can either decide to do a public offering, which would be, you know,
which is an option.
which people could buy bonds from the PID on the market, on the bond market, for example. Or they may do what's called a private placement, where they bid for a single entity that buys all of the bonds. And that's really their decision. It's not ours.
We don't have a say in that, yeah. When it goes out to bond, and it has not gone out to bond, but the PID has met. A couple of us were involved in that meeting just to hand it off to the new PID board. And the PID has started the process of getting that bond ready for sale. We don't have the information of which way it will be offered first. That's just coming up. Any other questions? I see it as a big win for the city because we get the money up front to build it from the bond market. It gets paid back over the life of the development area. And it doesn't change anybody's tax structure, which is really nice.
What happens to for the people who hold the bond?
The people who do buy the bond, it is a at-risk bond. I mean, if nothing ever happened here, if they bought the bond and nothing happened, you know, there's a risk that it doesn't develop the taxes to pay it back. But they're going to be confident. I mean, there's a bond package. What it does, if you sell the bond, you say this is our information that makes it an attractive bond because we believe that it will produce the revenue to repay it. So,
Okay, but what is the bond? What, say a large corporation buys the bond,
yeah.
right? And that's probably what will happen. What does that entail for our community
Nothing. I don't know that it affects us at all.
at all?
Well, you can go and buy bond, I mean, not this bond, but you can go buy
Buy
bond.
bonds anytime, yeah.
Yeah,
You get a set interest rate over after a given amount of time.
yeah, because the PID pays those bond holders back over time. The CRA that's around it, that's generating the new tax revenue, the property tax revenue.
Yeah.
Is transferring it to the PID, so that they can make payments.
Trying to remember, think of what other information hasn't been said. So we said, and how this works itself out. Answer questions before they happen.
Yeah, that's great. Not sure what we haven't talked about though. The real win I see for the city now is that this doesn't impact sales tax at all to the city. In most cases, every Costco that has been built in Utah before this has had an incentive agreement where your tax dollars was paid back from the city to Costco to repay for infrastructure. In this case, there is none of that. The entire sales tax that would come to the city is coming to the city. There is no incentive in this. Now, that's partially due because the legislature made it illegal, so we couldn't even consider that. But
I mean, this
it's,
feels like it's kind of a roundabout way there. The whole setting up all the entities and we're just kind of making it easier for them, like we're jumping through hoops for them with this feels like, and
well, sure we are. I
yeah,
mean, that's
so it's
how,
kind of an enticement in its own right.
sure. I mean, we're helping that make this possible because this land doesn't have roads on it. It does not have the storm drain that it needs on it. It does not have the sewer infrastructure on it. It will serve more than just this first tenant. There's still another 100 acres here that will access this in the city. So the fact that it serves our city, going to serve probably over 100 homes that may be developed at some point in time. And I don't know that it'll be homes because there's no application at this time.
Does the development of residential that have any dependency on how the taxing entities get their portion back?
No,
So none of that is dependent on any.
that's not written into this at all. It's, in fact, it's strictly, when we approached this, one of our conditions was that if there was any residential, that it would not be impacted and there would not be power. Because one of the things that's in the law is public infrastructure districts could be, upon creation, granted the power to tax within the district. We did not allow for that to happen. It was a choice that we consciously made. So they don't have the power to tax. They cannot generate more than is being asked for in the bond. That way, there's nobody can profit from this other than the interest of the bond, which is the way it's set up to be. Anyone else?
Put the last part again. Run the last part by me again.
The citizens, the PID cannot tax the other properties. Property tax. Property
No,
tax.
after that. After that, nothing else can make it in the interest of the bond. What did you say that last?
Oh, it could have been, but it is not, that they could make a profit from the tax. That is, they can only make the profit on the bond, which is an interest profit, which is all bonds. That's not changing for this bond or any other bond.
I was just making sure that I heard that right.
There's no provision for that. And I think that that's important because we're not here to make anyone in particular prosper other than the community. Okay, without any further questions, I'm going to move us past this. And if there are questions in the public for anyone online or watching this meeting, feel free to reach out. We have spent almost 3 years on this project, and I think that this is the best possible outcome for the way this would lay out. So I'm happy to talk about it. All right, item number 3, and this was addressed in public comment, so I'll recall that at this time. This is a recommendation from the Planning Commission application for a zone change on the property located at 2191 West, 1700 South. This is currently A1, and they would like it to be general commercial. The applicant is Bright Development Group. Council, you've had a chance to look at the packet. I will be very candid that we have limited information at this point in time. We do ask, for as much as we can use, but given what you have, what are your thoughts?
Now the applicant is here. Can we ask him kind of what the plans are for this?
Same.
So here's what I would say to that. I mean, we can, but the reason that we ask applicants to put this in the packet is because what happens if this community says, had I known that, I would have been here to comment as well. So in all fairness, we shouldn't be responding to anything that they didn't put forward
Agreed.
as information. And that's,
It's a work session. That's the whole point, is to talk about it.
well, but it's in fairness to our public, they should have a chance to participate if they see a need.
Mhm.
So,
This is on the agenda,
I mean, yeah, they probably would like to know too.
so we can ask about it, or we can just move on. We'll see what happens in the business meeting. So I would like to hear from, just to see if there's any inclination of what's gonna go here.
I would too.
I don't feel like I can move forward without that.
okay. The process that we go through, and I just reiterate, the process was that we put forward a couple of years ago was put this in the packet. And if you're gonna circumvent that, then we'll never get stuff in the packet.
We just got some questions. Maybe this is a work session. That's like the whole point. So we can ask some questions.
And if people would provide the information, you'd have those answered.
Isn't the issue is whether this is the appropriate zone
I think so.
For what?
for general commercial?
That's what we want, that's what we would
I
like to
mean-
chat about, is
Well, but-
what type of general commercial is.
But this isn't an issue of
What's going
what type. That
And I
isn't,
think
that
it's-
isn't what's before.
So with the application, it was just a general request to rezone to the general commercial zone. Which means they could, if they are successful, they could build any of the permitted uses within, that's listed in the general commercial zone.
with the town center overlay.
And then there is, part of that zoning is also the town center overlay, which would not change with this request. I asked them if they had more specific uses or anything, but they said, I just want it to be the general, general commercial. That's it.
I have
But-
no idea. Are you
but
guys,
part of
are you
that
guys
is
planning
just
on
I don't
selling
know.
it after? Are you planning on selling it?
Well, that's what you have to be as.
I know,
a
this is the
decision.
same
You
question
have
I
to
ask the same
safeguard.
developer every single time. What happens next with the property?
You have to safeguard against any of the uses that are in the zone if you're going to do it blindly.
Yeah, so the question at hand is, are all of the permitted uses in the general commercial zone appropriate for the requested site? So I would read through that list, and if there's any of those uses that you don't think should go there, you wouldn't want to. Planning Commission did review this. They are recommending approval. We did hold a public hearing.
And my concern is if we go back to micromanaging what should and shouldn't be in that zone, then there's no reason to have the zone. Either it's there as it's defined or it isn't. That's where we get into trouble. In my view.
It's hard to really determine whether the problem
He's the attorney.
I don't argue with that.
You know, I mean, just.
And I agree with that. Well, when it comes time to voting, but it doesn't mean I don't want to know. And I feel like sometimes if I have an inclination of what's gonna go there, it makes my job easier. That's part of planning. And I agree that we can't say, I want to know what's going here, I'm not voting for this. That is not part of the process. But it is nice to have some idea of what's gonna be going there and kind of how it fits in the area.
One
To
thing.
be fair, I feel like
But-
from this specific developer, we don't ever really get specifics on what might be going somewhere.
My question is a specific required for doing what we're doing tonight?
I
It's
think
not
it fits in that
required.
spot.
No,
It is not required.
we,
They
that's
can make
our,
Yeah, I mean, you can decide that it's easier for you to make a decision or not if they do provide information, but if they choose not to, it's not required for a general zone change.
And not to be fair, this is what we're planning in this whole area, right?
No, actually, this is to remind you, item 6 is about the light commercial zone, which was specifically being designed because there are some sensitivities in this area, at least for the neighbors who've expressed multiple times in meetings that there's concerns about noise or smell or hazards.
And they were there first.
And they were. So if we're developing a zone that is supposed to be conscious of that, then we've already had a discussion saying that that's what we perceive this to be used as. But we haven't finished that zone. So, you could put this off until then if you want to see if that's applicable. It's your choice.
I think you may have been asking about the general plan. So the general plan says commercial, which would allow general commercial zone. It would also allow a professional office or neighborhood services. That's just the
So-
general process is that you apply a zone with its permitted uses. And then once they get the zone, then they can do any of those uses.
Now, my understanding is this light commercial is specifically to be sensitive to the residents that do live in areas that will have their housing right on the backside of, like parking lot complex things. And this being one of them, that little strip right there. And I believe down over here on 2000, how that's gonna end up down over there. Right where it's at on that backside, of the space that's already there, right, where that's where those restaurants and stuff are, right there, Waffle Stop.
Mhm.
Well, oh, that place is fantastic, by the way, shout out to them. We already have a whole lot of complaints from the residents there for loud noises, so things like that, and a lot of things that we do allow in that commercial area would really not be housing friendly, and I'm gonna say this again, with my familiarity with the requester of this, I wouldn't take any shot in the dark of what might be there. So I feel like that general property itself would probably go more towards the lighter commercial zone that we're looking at. Just because of the neighborhood that is just adjacent to, and the rest of them along that side.
Yeah, this is the group that was in here just a few months ago complaining about noises and I mean, they're fed up
Crazy there. Oh,
and they're fed up. And so this does seem more conducive to a light commercial.
yeah.
I don't know if they would be
Or
willing to
professional
modify
office,
that,
but
or professional
again,
office, something along those
all
lines.
those,
Not a car wash.
Well, car wash would be permitted in this zone.
and that's,
Oh,
if you
I
did
would
general
probably
commercial, it
expect
would be
nothing less.
permitted.
What?
That's the part of this that we have to consider is,
The town center overlay actually would not allow.
Wow, for a
Oh,
car
yeah.
wash, yeah, that's right.
That's
Or
right.
gas.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the commercial zone.
But yeah, that light commercial feels like that's just the way we should follow this side. If that's something we end up doing. So I feel like this is a little preemptive.
Presumptive or premature?
You can't tell people when to apply, you know, they do it when they feel it's necessary, you know.
Yeah.
so this isn't a vote tonight, this will be a vote in our future meeting. Is there any more discussion before we move it on to a future agenda? It'll be up for discussion that night too. And I would just publicly say that the more information that's in the packet, the more we have to go on. But, and that has constantly been the invite. Please put as much as you can in the packet, because then the citizens can see it too. Nothing has been worse than the times when we had something get approved and citizens came back and said, had I had any idea this would have affected my property this way, I would have been here with 50 neighbors objecting, whether that's true or not. But I'm trying to protect the citizens' right to know what we're talking about and what we're making a decision based on. And if we start entertaining things that are not presented, they'll never know. And that's not fair to them.
This is on YouTube.
What-
I mean, I feel like, come on, you guys know this is what we need. We've said it like 5 times now that you've come in, well, I'm exaggerating, probably twice. Now that you brought a packet in, so you can't be shocked that he's saying it again. You have to add more to it. He's
All right.
right, he's right. I mean, we've said it a few times. Thing,
But the adding more to it is whether or not the requirements of this zone apply.
That's the planning commission responsibility. I think ours is a little bit different. We have to say, is this the right place for this?
yeah.
And it's not necessarily just the zone, but also what we think is going to live that zone. So I disagree with you a
the
little
terms
bit.
of the ordinance.
Sure. And if there's things in there that we're not quite sure we want to go there, then yeah, we could look at saying maybe not.
And again, the suggestion of putting things in the packet really comes down to, you can get a decision with all the information possible, or you can take your chances that all the things I don't tell you are the reasons why you might.
There you go, that's that.
Yeah, so the more you say, the more you bring forward, then you have, that's part of the consideration. All right, so I'm gonna move us on. The next item, number 4, is recommendation from Planning Commission, application for zone change for property located at 2550 West, 700 South, residential A1 to agriculture A1, applicant is Jacob Briggs. This is very unusual. We almost never get somebody that wants to go from residential to agriculture.
So glad they do though. I'm loving this, yeah.
Again, that's fine. The information you have in front of you is what we're considering. And actually, I'm going to open up at the same time in conjunction item 5, because it is the exact same property. And it is the recommendation to request that the same property be put in agricultural protection area. So I think that we can discuss these together. They will be separately voted on, but one goes with the other. It's
The agricultural protection area is actually larger than this particular piece,
Okay.
but this piece is included in the proposed agricultural protection area.
so.
This is a very prolific farm. It's one of those small family farms that is amazing, and it is just trucking right along. And how they're still going, some of us do not know, but they're doing a great job. And I think as a city, we need to do what we can to protect these little guys.
I think this is great. My only concern is we would need to pull out the area for a future road. Because part of our job is planning for the future, and we know our plan actually has a connection. I don't know when it's gonna go in, but so long as that is extracted from this, and we don't have to go through all the rigmarole associated with that, I'm good with that.
What do you mean? I need more words.
Like, when we want to build a road, we would like to be able to buy ag protection would not allow us to do that.
So you want to put a road through their farm?
Along the side of it, that's in our plan, you approved it.
There is a master plan road for 2,500.
Yeah, but this would protect it from doing that, right?
This would
Yes.
mean that you could not put the road in.
Yeah.
Except
I
that
agree.
Jake has agreed to work with us on that. He and I have been exchanging some language. So I think the proposal that you get when you get to your business meeting will address that concern and exclude something along that eastern boundary.
Oh,
Or
so
that
long as
will-
that's
Okay,
taken care
that
of.
was not, yeah.
If and when it is ever built. But it will get all the
Okay.
other protections of the agricultural.
Okay,
Now, in planning commission, they talked about, it would make it so that we had to go through I forgot the term for it.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
That is so messy. For the
I-
citizens,
what a
too.
dirty word.
Yeah, I don't want to have to go through eminent domain. Now, again, the person always has the right to say they don't want to sell. I understand that. But I don't want it to be eminent domain or nothing. It needs to be.
So I want to be clear on the status of this road, because it's been on our plan for more than 20 years as a projected site for a road. We just went through an updated plan, and we didn't see any need for this to be built in the next 5 years. Clearly, maybe 10.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to put in a road. That is absolutely, that is, there's no justification for that today.
Agreed.
But I do think when we consider things like how the highway impacted the city, when people dismissed the designated corridor, they really messed with some other situations. And this is not just our city, but neighboring cities as well. When they sold land that was part of a designated corridor, and then UDOT came around and said, well, this road still has to go in, they caused themselves some real eminent domain problems. So I think that we have to be forward thinking and say that someday there will need to be access here. When that is, I don't know. But, well, I'm trying to put forth, we don't know that, but protecting it is kind of in bounds for a council to do.
We definitely need to protect the corridor. Our job is to plan for the future, and this is part of that plan. Yes, as
So
long,
you guys already got that part in the works, though, right, Colin?
We are working on it,
Okay.
yes.
In that case, I think it's a good result.
Right.
I mean, it's just property, and if he wants ag protection, I
The
don't
feeling
have
for
any issue.
ag protection, how we have our set at 10 acres, but Greenbelt is only 5 acres. That's something we should look at. As far as it-
Okay, well, that's not part of this
Anyway, yeah,
application.
anyhow,
but- yeah,
okay,
and
no
it
problem.
can be a future consideration. The odd
That helps
part
protect
here
more
is
small
that,
people.
okay, so the odd part for me is that what came up at planning commission was that making this change doesn't do anything, or nothing that they could do today is different if they change it to this. And so that's, I've always been curious, why take an action if it doesn't make a change?
It does, for them, for an agriculture, it does, though, it does.
You just need that peace of mind.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just keeps it, it will stay farmland. Knowing it's agriculture and it's gonna stay agriculture, it just gives you a whole lot of peace of mind this farm.
Now, do all the structures in this zone meet the A1 zoning?
Agriculture, zone? I mean,
Because you can't have, so, I mean, I see a lot of houses that are kind of close together that in an A1, I don't know if you can do that.
If you read through the report, there are a few parcels. There's the minimum lot size in the agriculture of a half acre. There's a parcel in there that's less than a half acre.
So how do we
So you'd
address
be
that?
creating kind of an existing non-conforming use. It just means that if he tries to go get a building permit, he's not going to be able to build a house on that individual parcel, but he might consolidate those parcel lines later. It's not really, we talked about it. I don't know if it's necessarily a deal breaker, but it is in the report is something that we noticed. And there's one parcel that doesn't have any frontage. So if you went to build something, wanting to build something on there, but the applicant stated that he's not interested in creating a subdivision, he's down zoning just to preserve his agricultural needs.
Yeah, what did strike me as odd, because this doesn't buy him anything.
You get more agricultural protection in ag zone. Because what the agricultural protection does is all the extra complaints and things like that, farm work and tractor work and stuff like that, it's basically voidable, kids thinking about it. They have an ag protected, you can't get that unless you're in an ag zone. So that's what that allows them, and that's a big deal.
I'm surprised they didn't leave the R1 house out of it, because this actually makes it more difficult for them to deal with that lot if at any point in the future they want to do anything. That's why it's surprised me.
I think this is the point that they're proving that they don't want to do
Yeah.
it. They're not interested. Stop knocking on their door, kind of, you know?
Right.
Okay, it feels like we've kind of settled unless somebody has a new point to bring up.
Good for them, we're proud of them.
Okay, all right, so this will
Cheers.
go forward in our next meeting. Number 6, recommendation from planning commission to create a light commercial zone. Obviously, it started at city council, so you're well aware of it. We wanted something that addressed, as I mentioned earlier, a commercial zone that could be neighborhood friendly, meaning it didn't have sounds or smells or toxins that would be a problem. Now, I still think it's kind of crazy how we went about this zone by trying to put a table with a million different uses in it, and not just saying we don't want smells, sound, and toxins, but because that I thought was kind of summed it up a lot simpler terms.
If it disrupts the 5 senses for the neighbors, it's a no.
But how do you feel, council? It's your zone.
I think the 3 senses or the 5 senses disrupting, that is extremely subjective and would not hold up in any court.
Well, you just listed 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, 3 senses. Does it smell?
Well, I think,
If a diesel pulls in, are they in violation? Because I think some diesel smell.
I mean,
I
the
think what
sewer
you do is
district
you-
smells 90% of the time, so.
you identify that it has a level of smell that's intolerable, and it is determined at this line, or a level of sound, or during these hours that is intolerable. Because the tough part is that when this was in front of planning commission, because I was there that night, one of the things that they said was, some of these uses, like a car wash, does it have sounds? And does that mean the car wash couldn't open until a certain hour? And to those kind of things, you stop and you say, okay, if it just said I can't make this kind of noise at this level or higher during waking hours, that kind of sums it up without worrying about whether it's from a car wash or from a merry-go-round or whatever else that makes public noise.
The decibel equivalent to smell. Parts per million.
Well, for smell, you would say, does this in imposition in the, at some level?
The sniff meter, buy one of those.
We do have, there is such a thing because there's are the toxins or are the
Are
smells
we
intolerable?
getting down this lane right now? Come on, you guys.
I just don't think, I don't think the 3 senses are defensible.
Yeah.
Colin, I mean,
So you
tell me
think
if I'm
that
wrong.
you'd rather have a table of 100 different uses?
I
What
believe
happens
they're
when-
overly broad.
What's that?
Yeah, I believe they're overly broad to answer your question. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine.
You can chime in
Everybody's
anytime
opinion is
legality
here.
comes in
My
question.
concern is, what about all the things that aren't on that list?
I will say that we do have a noise ordinance that does have a specific level of decibels that is applicable to all of the properties.
Yeah,
So this is included, and I will also say that the table is gone.
Oh,
No
okay.
table, okay.
Last-
Planning Commission
the
has
table is still there.
massaged it a little bit. They've included, they recommended beefing up the fence, so the concrete fence is required. There's a maximum of 1 story. There's pretty ample setbacks.
If you allow a bakery, technically that would violate.
It'd be too smelly.
Yeah. Jordan.
Smell, cat smells.
Yeah.
So, but each
Yeah.
use, you can kind of imagine what kinds of senses.
There
that
goes
they
our
might
donut shop.
evoke.
I didn't like the definition.
All right, so what do you want to do
Sure.
with it? Or tweak it, or?
I mean, why can't there be a clause at the end of the list of that says,
No.
and anything else that's deemed too smelly and noisy?
Or you could just preface the whole zone by saying this zone is designed to deal with
Meet
these
Karen's standards?
nuisances. No, meet these nuisances.
We do have
Who's
language
gonna be
already.
carrying this? Is my question. Like, who's gonna be like, this is too smelly?
Neighbors probably. But we do have language already in our industrial zone that talks about vibrations and air pollution and stuff like that. We could borrow some of that language and just stick it in a paragraph in the end.
Like in here, I could see someone say, hey, on here you have public schools and preschool. I mean,
We already got them.
one could argue that that would be too noisy.
Schools are legal in every zone.
Right.
It's talk to the legislature.
Yeah,
Like religious institutions.
Schools and churches are legal everywhere.
Yeah, and I
You
agree.
cannot outlaw them anywhere.
so I'm okay with the list. I mean, that's how our current commercial works, because it has a list.
Okay.
This is just I would expect it to be a subset of that list. Are we adding new things to this list that would not be allowed in a commercial zone? I guess
This is
I haven't
the list.
compared.
Every zone has a list, and this would be the list, and it says no other uses except for this list will be allowed. So if it's not on there, you can't do it.
How many places in the city would this even be applicable to?
Mostly in
left.
city center overlay
So, I
zone.
mean, there's not very much
There's not.
left.
Well,
that-
Or we're down on 2,000.
Or if someone wanted to put something
2,700.
closer to a commercial or to a residential area, we could ask that they apply this zone as a, because especially if they're not in the town city overlay and they just want commercial, this would be a good tool to be able to say, hey, if you want to put light commercial in, like, for a while, they wanted to do a coffee shop
Well,
over.
this is basically what's coming up down here on 2,700, 2,000.
Mhm.
Grocery store and stuff. That's gonna be applicable over there. It's all gonna be houses.
But that wouldn't be on this list.
Well, after the grocery store goes in around it.
Yeah.
Rather than house.
Agree. So I think this is a great zone that limits the impact to us, a neighborhood.
So you okay with the way it's written today?
I am.
I'm right with it.
All right, so I'm just gonna move it forward to the next agenda. Let's move on to finance items. Thank you, Noah, for your help. Finance items, discussion regarding solid waste services contract with Robinson Waste. Steve, present to us where we're at today.
Yeah, so this is the next phase of the recycling program. We are bringing forward a contract amendment with Robinson Waste. Our contract with them goes through 2027. So this would be an add-on. The cost for them to haul recycling cans is $3.45 per can. With us purchasing all the recycling cans, it does deplete our cash balance from $672 to about $100,000. So my proposal to the council is to separate at $4 per can, so we can recoup that cost.
For the can.
For the cans, yeah. Our minimum
Can, actually.
Our minimum fund balance policy is usually a 2-month reserve to cover our revenues and expenses, so that's about $350,000 in the fund, so I'd recommend keeping that rate and reevaluating it in a couple of years or yearly until we can get that funded on. Along with this amendment, Robinson Waste has came forward with a letter requesting an increase of 3% in their contract. They have, it is written that they can request that from the council, so they have brought that letter. That is in your packet, and that does match the CPI over the last year. So those are the two amendments in the contract.
Just out of curiosity, how often can they request that 3%?
Every year.
It's an annual.
So they did it last year and this year as well.
Last year they did it because the fuel prices went up so high and they didn't quite request enough, and we only gave them the
I agree.
3%, yeah,
It's tied to CPI.
Yeah.
in the contract.
yeah.
It's the maximum.
And I have no doubt in their defense, that fuel prices probably ate them alive last year. That was insane, the way that skyrocketed.
There is protections, I shouldn't say protections, there is surcharge where they can charge over when it reaches a certain threshold, which we did not. It was at the beginning of fiscal year, the last, I think 6 or 8 months, they have not charged a surcharge since the rates still drop and the gas prices do up a little bit, but there is a provision in there, if it does reach a certain threshold, that they can charge a surcharge to recoup some of that cost.
I. This is the next step.
Yeah, it feels like the economy is.
Anyone else? Okay. This will be on our next agenda for possible vote. The next item, number 2, is discussion regarding proposed amendments to the city budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Steve, help us with those.
There are several adjustments in here. I'm not gonna go through them line item by line unless you have questions. A lot of them are capital project changes and updates. Those are in red. There's a comparative of current and proposed budget. There are a couple of items I do want to call out because it's discussed with the council. One request is in the general fund with Heritage Days, a request for a addition of a drone show with the fireworks show.
With?
I believe so. It's just
Are the fireworks gonna be shooting at the drones?
No, you have drone show first and then the fireworks afterwards.
I feel like that's we don't think that's accepted.
Who would do the drone show?
Up to you.
It's a company that does it.
It is a cost of $15,000.
It's a different company from the fireworks.
Yeah.
company?
Yep. With that said, we are trying to raise money sponsorship for it. Offset that.
This would be a max of 15K.
Mhm.
Hopefully with sponsor that would cover it. How much, sorry, can you remind me how much we do on fireworks?
15.
What's the benefit of doing a drone show with the fireworks?
It's just an added bonus. People are going towards like drone shows, but we know how Syracuse loves their fireworks. I know that you love your fireworks, so you can have either or. When we looked at not taking away the fireworks show, we decided to see if we wanted to. The 15 minutes of the drone show is minimum of what you can do. You can do it up to an hour.
So coming from a wartime veteran who has horses, I personally don't like the fireworks, but I understand people do, so I take my own precautions to deal with my own self, because that is a me problem and nobody else's. However, I have seen those drone shows are pretty incredible. And they're better in a lot of ways than fireworks, and I think they are more friendly, but they are also kind of questionable whether or not you're gonna get attacked by a drone at some point during the show.
Well, you could
So
say
once in a while,
fireworks,
exactly, once in a while, those drones go rogue, so I feel like that's also a thing that more and more stories go about those, of like, maybe these aren't the best things that we could have.
I actually had the same concern. I was talking to our insurance about it because in my mind,
Yeah.
it's more of a risk of something falling out of the sky. But they actually say fireworks, are dangerous.
Oh, okay, I mean,
As
I
long as you have a fall, though.
trust experts
Right.
over,
Just
Trial and
up to you, if you guys just would rather stick with the fireworks show, we can stick with the fireworks show.
There could also be a conditional approval if, if we're able to raise a certain amount of money to cover it. Things like that. If we don't raise that amount, then we won't do it. So there's options like that.
I just want you guys to know that, like, compared to other cities, they spend way more on fireworks.
You don't care about them.
I know, but I'm just saying, we're just trying, as one of our
They
goals
need to
is to
spend more
make it
money on their
bigger,
roads and
is to
stop
make
paying
it
for
bigger and
fireworks.
better, and that's all we're trying to do.
I like drones, I do. I think the less boom, the better for me, personally. But I can't validate wanting to spend another 15 grand to add to, you know what,
It's not gonna hurt my. feelings.
I'm actually gonna step out of the
Rusty, is it on the same night as the fireworks?
It would be one following the
It's
other, is what you
15 and
said.
15.
Yeah, and we want to do that the first year if we decide to go forward with this, because we have a huge crowd. So you don't want to spend that kind of money on a Friday night if you're not gonna get that huge crowd. And we also are cognizant of like PD and fire who are there to help on Saturday night and not having to bring them out on Friday. So to see how people like it, because they may not like it. It's definitely different.
And they may love it.
You know, it's come up before, and I'm just gonna reinsert this into the council discussion. But since we've been the host to the illumination event, which puts together 10 times the fireworks show that we can afford, the question really comes down to, do we even need to have a second fireworks show? I mean, this is not a particular holiday. It is our heritage festival, but that doesn't require fireworks.
Don't start a riot. Don't start a riot.
Well, I mean,
Like, we're already talking about going to drones. People would lose their minds if you take the whole thing. Like, that's their 1 week of heritage Syracuse. We love our city. And they finish it off with a big kaboom, literally. So you can't,
I don't think- I think a lot of people,
you're gonna fight. People are gonna fight you over that.
maybe,
But that'd be really.
When is the other, event?
it's usually in August.
It's
September,
September, it's Labor
first
Day.
week in September.
Thank goodness it's
First
after,
It's
because
the
they
first-
would
it's
talk
the
so
first
much
Wednesday
crap about our
before
fireworks show that day before.
Or after.
So thank
Yeah,
goodness.
it's Memorial Day, the Wednesday after Memorial. Day.
So, I mean, it is
Fireworks
fall,
show.
it's end of year, we do this huge fireworks show that's part of Illumination, it's not paid for by the city. But it's bigger than anything we
It
can
is.
afford.
It's amazing.
Incredibly.
What does
So-
it cost us to bring illuminations here?
We just sponsor their.
To sponsor,
Sponsor them.
it doesn't cost
It's-
us, we just host them.
Yeah, they're incredible.
It's
to
a
work with,
great
too.
event.
I
Amazing.
know.
I love it.
Yeah, I just.
It's
Yeah.
just a lot more economical in my eyes to do our fireworks
We
then.
could plan illuminations.
Or maybe we could just do a drone show, a really big one, and then they'd let them have fireworks.
You could, but that's what you're gonna do, like the.
People will fight me on it too, but I'd be like, military veteran, and I'll get about 30 seconds of, aw, and then they'll fight me again. Like, that's about what will happen.
I don't know.
Have you had sponsors in the past to offset some of this?
We actually have, but we actually came to council last year and said, can we actually use the sponsorship? Because we get about $10,000 worth of sponsorship. And so, yes, it was decided that if we could raise the money. We haven't really gone out hard for the drone show yet because we didn't want to do that. And we really can't like wait to see, because
Yeah.
if they don't know by like, we
Yeah,
told them March
schedule.
11th, they'll not put it in.
So
Again, it's here to say, this is something we'd like to make it bigger and better. People complain that our fireworks show isn't big enough.
Yeah, because it's like, what's the point of spending the money on it if you're not gonna spend the money on it? Kind of either don't do it or
So we
do
just,
what you, yeah. that's
yeah, we
kind of
just
the way-
try to, we're not trying to compete with Illumination. There's no way we can.
Yeah, no, they got a huge budget.
So
Are we using the same firework company year after year that people are saying?
We
is
need
crap?
owners also.
the Illumination has their own thing. We're actually going out for RFP this year to put it out. For the fireworks show, but this year we'll be using the same one as we used last year. It's the Dragon Dynamite.
I take out my phone, I don't actually, I leave right beforehand. If I was Kristen, I head on out.
And they do a good job. If you guys just want to do the fireworks and you're hung up about this, then
Well, I
You know.
feel like the fireworks are traditionally what we need to stick with right now. I don't know that we need to move into the drones. I don't still think it's. Our population is still kind of old. We don't have that money.
Right?
I mean, if there was offset, I could see that, but it sounds like we're too far into this year. to even look
For the drones.
at that.
Okay, so I'm getting a general sense that the drones are off the table
For this year.
for this year. And that's all we really are talking about tonight, because we're just talking about amending this budget. So that one will be pulled out. Are there any others that need to be discussed?
One other question on the recycling program. So there's a couple options we can do to help promote the program. This is the last bullet points of the packet item. Option one is we had an idea of maybe doing some magnets to put on the fridge for the first year while people get used to the every other week schedule. That does come at a cost of $4,500. Option two would be if we just do a flyer, it would be $1,700. Option three would be if we combine the flyer with our secondary water map front and back, it'd be $2,000 combined. We're kind of up in the air on the magnets. I think it's a great idea, but justifying $4,500 in costs is kind of.
Well, and all the garbage cans will have a sticker on it that says,
Right.
this is what you put in the garbage
That's
can.
kind of be a reminder
Yeah.
right there, and it's free.
Well, he's talking about
This is more
the
the pickup
schedule of when
schedule,
your
the
pickup
red
is.
week, the
Oh,
blue.
I do what the neighbors do. I just look at my neighbors who know the schedule, wait for their can to go out, and that's when I put mine out.
And it will be on our website. It will be
Sure.
available. It's just another mechanism we could do with that.
I think that's another thing we'll
Cost
save the
either.
money on.
No.
I think people will, find out.
I like the flyers, and if they want to stick on the fridge, they can.
Well, that's,
Like I put, if I don't check my fridge, I have everything in my phone. I'll say, hey, garbage can is this week.
Questions on?
I kind of feel like we need one more person to weigh in
I
on
feel
that.
like humans have lost their touch of observancy, is what it is.
Yeah, if you walk outside and like, oh, all the blue cans are out.
Every
Crap.
blue can on the road's out but yours, so I'm just telling you, get the blue can out.
I think there will be just a dumb effect and people will
Yeah,
find out soon enough without spending the dime.
because I have not looked at a single flyer that comes to my house. And
And you're saying no
I'm
flyers either.
certain there's 1/5 of the population are just like me. At least that's what it's counting. No.
Okay, so I have 2 no flyers and 3 no magnets. Is that, okay. All right. Okay, so we've got some direction there. We'll bring this back. It's not a vote tonight, it's a vote next 2 weeks from now. Item number 3, discussion regarding proposed amendments to Syracuse City Consolidated Fee Schedule.
So there are just a few changes, updates to the fee schedule. Some of it has to deal with the garbage, for the amendment to the recycling.
We decided not to put those chip marker things on trash cans, right? Those scans.
Oh, yeah.
RFID locator,
Yeah.
RFID locators.
They are not required.
I was just, oh, yeah, ADHD, just checking.
Yeah, they come in the cans, but we're not gonna use them, so that's part of the base rate. Okay, yeah, so recycling $4 per month, effective starting in April, we would prorate that first month since we wouldn't start picking up till the 21st. And then the CPI with the 3%, if council approves that, they're based on contract, it would be effective May 1st. I don't know if you want to combine how that all happens at the same time, or you want to see 2 different increases in 2 different months.
Say it again.
Yeah,
There's 2 separate increases, one for the CPI and one for the recycling, and they are effective 2 weeks apart. So you could say we're gonna have them effective the same time. Otherwise, you're gonna see 2 separate.
you could do it all May 1st.
I think it's best to do it at the same time so that.
I would agree with that, but that's the thing, I guess it's discussion.
And there are a few impact fee updates. This is a yearly update with these 2 plans. There's a bill ban increase each year. That's just following our impact fee plan. And then the door-to-door solicitation fines that we've talked about previously. Those are the changes.
That's a question about that.
Yeah.
We provide a warning for them the first shot, right? On that door to door.
Yes,
People put it, okay, I was just making sure that, yeah. I feel like this is perfectly reasonable.
Well, this is written into, like, the first offense is $20. Are we saying?
Do we give them a
Or-
warning before you, like, yeah,
The,
because
the,
PD is kind of,
the PD kind of gives them a warning.
yeah, you
It's
can't,
not
Okay.
kind of up to them. It's not an official warning that
yeah, I
we
mean,
issue.
discretion of, yeah, they
It's
have
kind
the
of like,
discretion of
yeah.
it, yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, you know, you didn't know, or it's like, hey, I talked to you yesterday.
Yeah,
You do
so
know.
sorry, guy,
I
yeah.
don't think there's a warning. I think you say, hey, you're in violation, and go.
You can do
You
that.
can give them a warning for any violation, you can get a warning report for a moving violation, thing like that,
But
written
that's the
warning,
discretion of the person who's.
not, discretion of the officer.
I don't think you can avoid that without.
You can get cops having a real bad day, does not care, you get a ticket.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on because I think we've kind of landed on a place there. So number 4 is discussion regarding proposed updates to the Syracuse City purchasing policy.
Yeah, so ever since I've been here and before my time, we've had the same threshold and limits on our purchasing policy. We did follow the state of Utah when it was first put into place, and they have now increased theirs to 50,000. We've also put in the packet some comparatives of surrounding cities and other entities of where they're at. They're kind of all over the board. There are some that are higher than the proposed 50,000 limit. There are some still the 25. My proposal to the council is to double all of our levels, so we'd go up to 10,000 or below, it would not require a bid. 10 to 20,000 would be 3 informal bids. 20 to 50 would be 3 formal price quotations, and then above 50,000 would be competitive bid.
Which cities at 25,000?
There are a couple of them still. Let's see. West Point. Down below, South Beaver.
In much smaller cities.
Yeah, there's kind of to say.
There are a few bigger, Farmington's at 125,000. Clearfield's at 100,000. So if you want to go to 100,000.
They are much bigger cities.
Well,
No one's
they're not-
Fairfield
neither
doing
one
all that
is.
extra.
We're bigger
Yeah,
than
no
both of
room.
those. However, I would not recommend us going higher. I would say that 50 is a good change. If you're going to make a change, I wouldn't go to 100. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with that.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we're landed there. Thank you, Steve, appreciate that. Our next item is discussion regarding draft key results from key performance indicators, KPIs, from the city vision statements. I'm going to preface this by saying that I am really appreciative of the staff who spent a lot of time on this. I was not part of this process, but when I did take a look at this pre-packet, I was impressed with what they came forward with. I'm not 100% in agreement with what's on there, but I'm very anxious. I told Brody, I said, but I'm very anxious to see where you guys are. If maybe you like the parts I don't, and that's okay. So I'm just very appreciative to the staff that put this together because this helps us measure, and we've not really had that, but there are important parts of your development when you get to a point where you can say, we need some indicators of whether we're doing this or not, so that we know we're on track other than just we feel good about our general philosophy here. So I'm very pleased to have us dive in and let Brody lead us through them because there's so many and we really have to take the time to look into them before we adopt something like this.
Yeah, and just to kind of, let me just orient how it's formatted first. So the vision statements that are in there, which you adopted at the last business meeting, those kind of serve like our North Star, right? It's a direction of where we're trying to get to, or, it's guiding us in a direction. The key results is a section under that, under each vision statement. Those are things that we largely have a lot of control over. And so that's where a lot of, we can be held accountable to those. Not all of them, because there's some things we can't control, right? Like the economy. But I think we have a lot of control over those key results. And what those are saying is if those key results are happening, then there's a strong argument that we're achieving your vision, right? And the city is achieving the council's vision. The KPIs, the way they're used here they are indicators. And the example I like to use is, it's like an indicator on your dashboard of your car, right? When a little blinky light goes on, say your windshield wiper fluid is low. It tells you the windshield wiper fluid is low, but it doesn't tell you why. You know,
Those are reward badges, sir.
you might have a hole in your reservoir, or you just might have used it all. And so an indicator just tells you what is happening. It doesn't necessarily tell you why. You have to actually go under the hood and look. But at least the indicator is going to let us know, right? And so we can say, hey, something's off, or all things look good, right? And those are things that we can watch and track over time to see how we're doing. So that's kind of the long and short of how this is structured. And so the question is, are those key results the results you're looking for? I think that's kind of the main thing. The second piece is, are those KPIs the things we want to measure? Because those are the things that we're measuring in order to indicate whether things are moving along in the right direction. I will say, one of the other things about KPIs, they're measurable, they're meant to be measurable, but no single KPI can actually tell you whether something is successful or not. It's just an indicator of success. And sometimes you have to look at 3 or 4 KPIs to determine if we're actually succeeding or not.
If you look at a lot of business modeling for finding success, if you don't have multiple KPIs, you don't have a true indicator. And that's always been taught. And I think that's true here as well. We don't ever want to focus on one thing alone.
That there are some KPIs in here that will need further refining to measure what exactly the standard is. We've tried to hurry and get this to this point for this meeting. And just want to know if we're going down the right roads for these things or not. And then some of these things we can refine because of the time that we have and the amount, the volume of information here. If there are a few key things you want to make sure we focus in on, maybe we can spend our time on that, on the ones you really feel strongly about.
Here's what my feeling is on this, is that before we adopt them, we do have to take a deep dive through all of them line by line. I don't think that we can do this in generality, but we do not have to do it in this meeting. I'm very open to the idea that we could take sections of this in different meetings and really refine them if you'd like, and that could be as lengthy a process as we need to make it successful. Meaning, if we can only digest 2 sections at once, that's okay. But the point that I'm making is, I think that if we don't do it line by line before we adopt them, we're making a mistake.
I agree with that.
We'll find things that we wanna,
Yeah.
we'll have to jump back into it
It's a lot of information.
It is.
all at once.
So what I would say is, let's take the first section and see how long that takes. Maybe we'll do another one, but we'll just kind of get a feel for how far we can go. Because we do have some other timely business that's gonna take some time to.
So you mean a deep dive? Is that what
Yes,
it's about to
we
do?
yeah,
Okay,
okay,
are we actually doing one of these right now? or
we should do at least
plan
one
for-
section,
Let's try out the first one.
yeah, so that we have an idea of how it goes.
So the vision statement's already adopted, right?
Yes,
So the question on the key results are these key results that are listed here, are those indicative of whether we're achieving the vision or not?
The only thing I'm curious about is how you get overall public satisfaction. Are we gonna, I'm assuming you're
Fair
gonna talk
question.
about that.
We're basing it off
It-
the complaints?
Yeah, no, I think the only possible way is
I do a survey.
kind of like a survey, yeah.
this is
But
the one that I have a
It's
problem
tough.
with. It's the one part
Well-
of this that I don't like, and I'll tell you why. And you know, Jordan, because you've heard me out before. But I've worked in the survey industry when I was in college, writing surveys and understanding, and you can word things to get the results you want. And I think that whenever you've got something that is so subjective in the way that, we could also be in a situation where we get 10 surveys back. And do we really trust those 10 people to be the opinion of the entire city? Or if, so the point is that I don't trust survey research. I know too much about it to know that I just don't trust survey research.
How about any time that like a work order is put in or things like that, that they have to go out and engage with the citizens, that we send them a email, their own little survey for just that person that they interacted with, and then if they want to fill it out, they can. And
I've seen a lot of these that we have. Do you feel safe in Syracuse? Well, again, we don't get that without a survey.
Yeah, and that's the tough part. How I think that we would rely more on something
customer
a little more,
satisfaction.
well, no, a little more akin to, so let me use an example. Yesterday morning, I met with the department heads and went through an exercise that I've gone through in work, which was, if you really want to know the key point to something, invert the question and drill down, because you'll find that some of the things that are that you may think are your key points are really not that. For example, we were talking in my company about what really is a deal breaker for a client that says, I'm going to leave you. Because we're a service-oriented business. If they say, I can no longer feel good about the service that I'm giving. Well, this is a service industry. So as we were drilling down through the department heads in general to try and understand what, as an employee or as a citizen, what's the real deal breaker? And one of the things that I think we discovered as a whole from the collective of department heads is, people can be forgiving when we make a mistake one time, but what they really can't deal with is not knowing what you're doing about it. Communication was the thing that we really came to as one of the most important things. Now, on this, you could turn some of your KPIs into real objective data points, like, let's say our point is, are we doing enough with code enforcement? Okay, we can be objective to say, did we respond within 48 hours, 24 hours, whatever that, 1 week, whatever it is that we set as that has to be done, you can make that very objective. But if you said, were we responsive? That's really subjective. You don't know, that person may say, well, what you told me didn't mean anything to me. So no, you weren't responsive. But we could make it, did we follow up with that we had seen the site within 72 hours or a week or whatever the deadlines are. If you turn them into that, what's the absolute deal breaker for a person? Is that nobody called me back. That's what you always hear with that particular one. And I think with safety, did an officer address my concern? If I made a complaint, did I feel like I was heard? And we could, from a very objective point, say, yes, an officer got to you within X period of time. Now, you don't have to agree with them. That's a different question altogether. But was the communication there? That seems to be a deal breaker for people. And so you get down to those deal breakers, and then you invert that and you say, that's what I absolutely must do. We decided that internally, to be each other's best customer in between departments, the one thing you want to know is, what can I expect from you in return? That was the biggest deal breaker for everybody, is I can't work with somebody that I don't know if they're even acknowledged that I asked something of them. Colin, for example, brought up to the table, which was a very good example. He's like, you know what? I can tell people I have these 3 cases that are ahead of you. So it may be a couple of days, but I've got you, and I will have an answer to you by the end of the week. Everybody at the table said, that's very acceptable. I don't need you at this moment to give me your full undivided attention. I just need to know that you heard me and that you will get to me. very positive point. So again, if the KPI was, did I walk away from a delivery and I knew what to expect? That's very measurable. If it was, do you feel like you were really hurt? That's a KPI that you just have no way to measure.
You're saying that in favor of surveys.
I'm not, I'm not because they're not
Summarize.
measurable. Okay, but I'm trying to,
Starting Drew.
I'm trying to point you to the more specific solution instead of a survey.
Yeah, and this is the challenge we had putting this together. One of the challenges of putting this together is, the vision statement says, did we meet the needs of the residents and businesses? How do you know? Right? I mean, you can measure, did we respond? Yeah.
So,
And that's,
I mean,
that's
they
fair.
do
That's-
individual customer surveys, like whenever I go literally anywhere, the cashier's like, there's a customer survey and my name is such and such, like, you can respond to the specific service that you had from a specific person.
And I think you can do that on some things.
Yeah.
We do, on other things, probably not. If
The response rate is average 4%.
if we have
That's just.
And that's what we go off.
If we have,
I mean-
if we have a combative resident, the officer has to wrestle him to the ground.
Okay, but let's be honest, if someone's, let's be honest, if someone starts screaming at one of our road guys, I pay your salary, they're gonna go back and be like, Mr. Robert, look, something happened today, this person started yelling at me, so my survey may not come back so great, like, we're already
Well-
aware of it. Like, that's, people, there's always gonna be people that are gonna yell, and you have to account for that in there, and that's where the
The hard part here is what I don't want to have happen
margin of error.
is our staff is now tied up doing surveys for every single, fix it ticket, no, well, that's what I'm saying, is that if we say, every time someone has a service and they now have to call them and say, hey, what did you think of how we did that? We can't do that.
Computerized thing, you just put a notice on the door, we were here,
Yeah,
thank
it-
you.
There are some
I
things that
agree.
could be easy, right? It's automated in the system, like
Mhm.
the fix a request, it could be,
Sure.
how is my service 1 through 5 stars, pick a star. But, other things would be more difficult, but you're getting to a point, there was another challenge in this is, I want to make sure we're reporting and measuring the fewest things possible that actually matter.
Right.
Because when we're measuring and reporting, we're not actually working, and doing productive work. We're just reporting on it. And so we don't want to report or measure things to the point that it's affecting our service. So that's another challenge.
I think you also have to be careful that you don't start down a path that could lead to a place you don't want to land. And in particular, let's say that today we're only talking about how do your surveys come back. But in 4 years, is another council going to say, I'm going to start tying your merit increase to the way your surveys come back?
Oh, I can see that happening,
You could. And so that's why, did you emphasize the right thing?
yeah.
Or did you
that's fair.
emphasize something that could be twisted later?
So
Yeah,
I appreciate the fact
unintended
the
consequences. of
things
that.
that are data driven and not always subjective. So I like the unplanned service outages per year. Okay, I can say that, say, hey, this was a bad year. What do we need to change? What was the driving factor? Were we not doing enough maintenance? That's actionable. If someone says, some people were mean to me. And again, sometimes it's like, well, you wouldn't fix the thing. So I don't want to try and find,
Well, they were nice 37 times.
exactly, but the 38, they were like, that's the time they filled out the survey.
Yeah.
And so I think surveys, I agree, are highly subjective. I would rather stick with the data-driven approach, and and again, I don't know how you say, do you feel safe in a community without asking that question?
Let me help you drill down there for a minute. If we were to identify what are some of the most common things that make people feel unsafe? And then rather than doing surveys on all these incidences,
Take the
we
data, look at it.
take the data and say, how many times did that happen?
Breaking
That's
into a
something we
dwelling,
don't have
robbery,
to stop and
things like
ask
that.
people
I agree.
about.
So I actually agree with your approach, but let's stick with the data for now. Maybe in the future, we feel like we need to add in more of the surveys and things like that, but for now, I'd like to just stick with the data and see where that leads us.
I don't think you're wrong, because we had like 10 outages last year and 3 this year that were unplanned. I'm like, hey, we're doing great.
Yeah,
That's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Well, if you just analyze the existing data that's there, then
yeah.
you.
We do way better than last year.
Let's see if
well,
we need to
you
add things to
discount
this.
all the emotion.
Yep, yep, very good point.
All right, all the other things on that number one, are they all right then? So, I'll remove overall public satisfaction from inside, because
Yeah, it's hard to
it's
gauge.
too hard to
It
gauge.
depends on what we're talking about, city council and the upcoming to determine how the
Depends on-
response is gonna transpire.
Depends on how social, Facebook. gets done.
So here would be my point of discussion at this point.
Want to see how many negative comments are on Facebook? We can use that as an indicator.
We've just spent,
Which ones have my name tagged in?
we've just spent the 15 minutes that we plan to spend on this. Could we extrapolate what we took from this first section
For another draft.
for another draft,
Yeah.
and then it would speed up further review?
We can make those changes, come back.
Yeah. Okay, I feel good about that. Are you guys okay? Move on? Okay,
Yeah.
I think that was helpful. All right, number.
Let's get coffee before Mr. Robert.
Number
It's the coffee, sir. It's not your fault. You would have kept going.
First, we're gonna talk about the transportation and utility fee study. And I'm gonna preface this by saying, I think this is a little bit early to make a final decision, because the legislature is talking about this one
Oh,
a lot.
what are they talking about?
There are 2 bills that address this, and we don't know if either of them or both of them are gonna pass. So let's keep it very high level on this one for now, is what.
Yeah, tonight, we're not really looking for a decision. We just want to present information to you. Last year, we spoke together as a council, directed staff to just explore the idea of what a transportation utility fee might look like for Syracuse.
Yeah.
If it was something that we desired to kind of pursue. So WCG had done a road condition study citywide, and put that in, crunched some data, brought it to council last August to kind of give a preliminary look at what they're seeing, and now they've refined that data to more of a final format, and they're here tonight is Clancy Black to present the final data here. Like I say, we'll take whatever direction council wants to go from this point. That's okay. But just take a look at the information, review it, and give whatever input you like. So with that, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Robert, and good to be with y'all again. Yeah, so let's start here. So just to preface a little bit, there's kind of 2 questions you'll want to consider. And like Robert said, no final decision tonight, but 2 questions you want to consider as we look at this data. First question is, what condition do you as a city want to maintain your pavements at? What condition level is acceptable? And then second question is, how will you fund maintaining that level? So there's a lot of charts here we'll see, and so I wanted to preface with that, just so you keep the kind of 2 different questions in context.
I want to respond to that a little bit, because we've had this discussion a few times over different generations of council. And I think we acknowledge that we're not gonna have perfect roads, because every day we deteriorate.
And no agency tries to maintain
And
perfect roads.
that's
Yeah, that's
impossible.
correct, yeah.
But we have set forth kind of a high standard in the fact that we made an aggressive approach 8 years ago to say we didn't want any road to get to the point where it would have to start over from scratch. We wanted to maintain what could be repaired, and not, because we had some roads. We had three neighborhoods that were 40 years old and had not been touched. And almost all of those were very expensive, and we had to go all the way to the base level to start again. Where we know that the rest of the city, we've been able to maintain with a variety of patches, resurfacing, treatments. And so I think that question's been answered in the past, and I hope that we're consistently there, that we want to maintain the level where we don't have to go to that total rebuild ever.
Yeah, and that is the best management strategy for sure. Could you go back a slide, please? Sorry. Okay. So if you look at year one here, that is essentially what we presented back in August. Your current condition, about 15% of pavements are in poor condition, red, about 55% in good condition. And that's pretty good overall for any agency. Like was said, you're never going to have everything in good or even fair condition. What we've done since then is forecast the condition. And this condition is based on your existing level of funding, which is about $1.5 million a year, I think, on payment maintenance. So because of growth and increases in costs, what we see in this current scenario, 1.5 million in funding, is that your condition does slowly decrease to a point where about 25% would be maintained in poor condition. So more in poor condition than you have today, and down to about 50% or less in good condition. So like I said, because of increasing costs, more roads in the city, where you are today, you will not be able to maintain that at the current funding level. So this is the current scenario and situation and conditions that result from that. So yeah, let's go to scenario 2. So what you're going to see in each of these scenarios now is different scenarios for how much additional funding you might consider giving to pavement maintenance and the cost impact of that. And this is evaluated using the transportation utility fee option. It sounds like you're generally familiar with that. Just to give you a little background on the method, it has to be based on impact. So it's similar to, just lost it, impact fees. Yeah, thank you, sorry. It's similar to impact fees. It has to be based on impact. So the impact from a commercial location is more than that from a single family location. So we took all of your parcel data in the entire city, looked at the land use in those parcels, and evaluated what's the impact of this land use type.
Institutional seems a little low, because a lot of our institutions have just as much traffic as many of our businesses.
So the way these are classified is based on the trip generation that are used for traffic engineering studies and everything else. So that institutional, there's a lot of churches in there, schools, government buildings, things like that. So there is in each category, there is definitely some that are larger generators and some that are lower generators.
I feel like institutions should also have that type of criteria that, hey, if we have one building here that has a ton of traffic flow, even if it is institutional, it seems like it should follow the same rules as commercial. Not the case.
That certainly can be done. The requirement for this plan is that you have to determine a way to classify each land use and have a documented and justified way of determining their impact. We split things up this way because that's how the data the city had is set up now.
Okay.
So you certainly can split it up differently. That affects the level of effort to manage and maintain the fee and classify things, but yes, absolutely.
So is that 5K based on square footage, or is that based on
that is
people?
That is building square footage.
Okay.
And we use that 5 and 5 to 10 and 10 because that's how your business licenses are classified currently. So yeah, definitely. If you felt like that was a priority, we could look at splitting up institutional into 2 different groups. You could also look at putting like different commercial groupings together. Instead of 5 to 10 and 10 plus, you could just do 5 plus, you know. All of that is options you have as long as it can be justified and documented and meets the criteria.
Would it be more appropriate to say, based on visits for business, like something like a grocery store attracts hundreds of visits a day, whereas something like maybe cold storage doesn't attract in and out customers every day, but they do have the big trucks. So maybe they're classified different than, say, a grocery store. I'm just asking.
How would you track that? They're like call Walmart and ask them how many people they got that day?
Yeah, that's That is,
I mean, I don't,
it
No, you're
is
right.
theoretically possible. Other cities have done that where they literally classified every single business. But then ultimately they still went with this grouping because it's just
It's good to know.
so much easier to maintain and manage.
Your use could also change if someone leaves the business and your business comes in.
Yeah.
Different customer count.
Exactly. So yeah, if you do that, you're
Excessive
tasking
manpower.
yourselves with maintaining a check on what that's being used for.
Mayor mentioned there are two bills in the legislature dealing with transportation utility fees. At least one of them, I haven't read the other one yet, but at least one of them would exempt religious and institutional organizations from being imposed. So that bottom category might simply go away if those
Because
bills
maybe
pass.
in our city, we don't have anybody that doesn't fall into that category. Yeah, and the Peterson bill, which is much closer to being passed at this time, does that. Just says, okay, you're a religious institution, you get nothing. You get nothing.
I think one is if the church has been used 3 days or less. The other one says all churches.
Yeah, all churches.
So that's the two. Yeah.
So this scenario here, it uses that method, these groupings, like we said, the groupings can be changed, but this grouping would be the easiest to manage in the city. Because it's data you already have. So this scenario, we're looking at 500,000 in additional funding, which gets you 2 million total. And you see the impact on conditions. So rather than dropping to 25% in poor condition, you are able to maintain about 20% in no more than 20% in poor condition and about 55% or higher in good condition. So in these scenarios, you'll see it's about a 5% adjustment up with each different scenario we present. And in the bottom right, you see the funding of what that would cost per month for each of those types of land uses.
So I feel like the way this is broken down in commercial house, the 3 tiers, that kind of reflects a lot what we do with the water. And it makes it more ideal and fair. But then you get some of those commercials that have big open spaces that need the open space, but don't have a lot of traffic there. And then other ones that have a little bit smaller space, like with get together, the spot down there by 7-Eleven that we all have.
Warehouse 22.
That place, they have a lot of traffic that goes through there, and it's, you know,
Good point.
Yeah, is there, in the model, is the, commercial, is that included like industrial?
Yes,
Is that how that's?
industrials in the commercial. And it's based on building square footage.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because for example, like the Pacific Steel Building is a giant warehouse.
Yeah.
It has essentially like one piece of equipment in there that processes the steel. They don't have a lot of people.
Yeah, whereas warehouse 22 doesn't have like a whole lot of square footage, but they have a ton of people going in through there every day. Non-stop parties going on in there, so that would be my question. I feel like that would be more of a responsibility on their part than on, you know, the other place. That they barely have any traffic, but they have huge.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll ever capture everybody.
Yeah,
But
no, yeah.
generally the land uses, I mean, I feel like there might be, I don't know if you can just use the IT name or something, but it seems like there could be an industrial option and then also a commercial, more like retail.
Yeah, retail is gonna have more vehicular traffic than. Sorry, go. My bad.
No, you're good. Yeah, and this is based on the trip generation manual.
I didn't know to interrupt.
Right. So yeah, it is based on that. And again, yeah, those groupings, you can adjust those. It just adds
Gotcha,
to your
yeah.
to your maintenance, the level of effort to maintain and enforce those.
These are a big deal for some companies, so that extra $200 a month might, you know, like,
Yeah.
especially right now.
It's not nothing for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you have more scenarios?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Let's.
Sorry, I apologize. Bottom right is comparison cities. These aren't perfect comparisons because they use different groupings, but it gives you some kind of litmus test to see what's happened in other cities. And I mean, cities approached it differently. The Highland and Fruit Heights methods may not stand up if they were challenged because
Yeah.
you're supposed to charge based on impact. That's not a legal opinion. I'm just explaining why those are all the same.
I mean, rules are rules.
Yeah.
Well, and Fruit Heights has very few, variety of.
Yeah.
Much of anything, yeah.
They've consciously been almost all residential, so.
Smart.
Scenario 3 here, is 2.75 million total, so $1.25 additional funding. This keeps your condition where it is today. So this is what's necessary to maintain what you have today. No more than 50% and 15% poor and 60% or higher in good condition. And then scenario 4 is 3.5 million. This would actually improve the quality and condition of your pavements, where you're 10% or less poor and up to 70% good. I wouldn't recommend funding more than this because then you're, like was said earlier, you can't maintain everything in perfect condition, and more than this, even this, do you want to improve or are you happy where you're at? But more than this, you'd definitely be using funds inefficiently, I think, based on how well.
Just because we know that these bills are gonna really change the discussion, are we good here? Because I don't wanna keep going.
Yeah, that's what we need to cover. I do have a comparison on the next slide that just shows all the scenarios together. But yeah, we wanted to present that data. And so again, the two questions, what condition do we want to keep it at and how are we going to fund that? And so our study in terms of the pavement plan and the funding options is pretty close to done, pending kind of what you all decide, what direction you all decide you want to go.
Yeah, the Peterson bill I know is trying to dictate a very specific solution, so that might change how we can even address this. And certainly, I think what's like Fruit Heights says what they're doing is would be coming illegal. So
Would be what?
it would become illegal, so they would have to change their policy to conform with that bill.
I feel like those two are a very lazy way of doing things. Like, well, we got it. You're not even getting,
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next item, which is discussion regarding secondary water season dates. Surprising how
Thank
this
you.
is really
Can I just
still.
Is that okay, just to leave it like that
You
and
can
have
have
him
to.
just submit
until those bills go through.
submit that as a final
Yeah.
to us, and then we'll approve it until you decide.
And we'll utilize it when we apply the bill,
Okay.
which, because I don't think we're gonna know
Thanks,
till April, really,
Thanks,
the
sir.
final
Yeah, thank
shakeout.
you.
Well, the session's gonna end in another week or two.
End of next week.
Yeah,
Hold
so,
on for another week.
but even then, I think.
Yeah, that's great.
There's still some settling with, does the governor veto something, does the governor, Anyway, so let's go on.
Secondary water season dates. So I bring this to you because we do, like every year this time, February, so we still have snow out, but we still get calls. Not a lot, but some calls.
People want to start.
Some of them are just from like management companies, just wanting to know when to schedule their work for some of those commercial or the HOA open space areas, so they know when to plan to start their work, set their clocks and that sort of. There's nothing in the ordinance that says when we begin, and the last 4 years, it's
Mother Nature
been
dictates.
different, it's been dictated based on, Mother Nature. I've got the schedule here from the last 4 years. We started in May, the last 4 years, and most generally we started May 1st, and then our end dates have been different, but September 20th was one of those drought years. October 1st was in 2023. 2024, we planned October 1st, but there were some hot temperatures in October, so we extended that to accommodate that. Even though we used our water supply was good enough to allow us to extend. What I'm looking for is maybe just some direction, and maybe we put it in ordinance to state what our water dates kind of begin and end on, and then allow council to either reduce it or extend it based on conditions.
So have a default.
One, yeah, if we had a default date, then it also helps us to plan and project when, to have water delivery happen for Syracuse. We can ramp it up as hot months, occur, and then ramp it back down at the end.
May 1st is a beautiful snow day, and
I agree.
Yeah.
And I liked what we did this year, or last year, I guess, where we went to October 1st, because a lot of times in October, it's starting to cool down, and we had the ability, I didn't know we used more than our allotment, but yeah, like the ability to shut it off and be able to supply the water in the, well, I think last year was the first year I didn't hear anyone complain about water pressure, because we were able to push more in those hot months because we were conserving in other times.
I think it was more so the last 2 years is because we cycled through the areas that people don't have so much problem with their pressure. It keeps the system running better.
And run your
And we
restaurant.
keep
That helps
that
with
day
the
off
festival.
Sunday, yeah, and Sundays, weren't allowing Sundays, right?
Yeah.
And that
Cleaned
keeps
out
it-
our filters is one of the biggest things.
And those filters are expensive.
Last year, our biggest help was definitely the reservoir by far. And we put in some pressure stations, which allowed us to really monitor static pressures throughout the system. We can get to a problem and fix it before it became an issue. And most people, it was invisible to them, didn't realize it. So we've done a lot kind of behind the scenes, besides just schedule. Schedule is certainly a part of
I think we
that.
should keep that
So-
schedule on there, because with the system running really well the last 2 years with that feels like it's a good thing.
So I can bring something back in the business meeting if maybe consensus on maybe a default date.
But May 1st is a good one. That way we adjust from there if necessary.
Mhm.
We can push back if necessary.
And May 1st, and then the end date is temperature dictated. Like, I would like to have a default of October 1st.
We can do that too, yeah.
And then say, look, but if the temperature is still over 90 degrees, we would have to look at.
Yeah,
We're
so
gonna get complaints from
With the
some of the
clause.
vendors, but we always do.
I mean, it's good enough for the farmers.
last year, if you look at kind of the last 4
Good enough
years,
for your
I
yard.
think farmers have their own water shares now, so.
It's good enough for the farmers, it's good enough for your yard.
I put the last 4 years of temperatures for October, the averages in there, you know, they had 64 degrees, 75 degrees, 67 degrees, and then 83 in last year, which was certainly unusual. And the easy way I could remedy that without coming to the council meeting is I just emailed the council to say I'm going to extend it farther, you know, into October to accommodate that. So I think that was a really simple
Yeah.
way without interrupting people's service. So I could continue doing something like
I
that.
mean, we rely on your word anyway, it's not like we gotta wait another week and a half to get it. You know, if you just email us. Yeah.
I'm seeing consensus, so start on the departmental biennial review there.
Okay.
Okay,
I-
these are so fun. Oh, can I just say whoever laid out the thing this time in order of like, this is awesome. Cassie,
Cassie did, yeah.
this is beautiful. It's the little things. Yeah, she makes my ADHD happy.
Oh, I noticed.
Yeah,
I liked it.
fantastic. Yeah.
Robert's.
How would I notice?
Slide illustration game is pretty strong, as you know.
You know, anytime you throw space
Yeah.
in there, I'm in.
I am there, huh?
Nice jacket.
Look at that guy.
Mm.
Looking cool in the shade.
Go to your share.
Is it here? Or, sorry, going back to Zoom, right?
Yeah, it was,
Do you go into the participants?
Where's you at?
The bottom.
Okay, how about I declare a 3-minute recess in case anybody needs
Sure.
to.
Cause we're all broken here.
Well,
Same.
we fixed this in case anybody needs a potty break. Now's the chance.
Yeah, and please ask for help, don't throw the
and
items.
switch over.
Can you make it go sideways?
Yeah, I'll show you how to do it, so you know how to do it.
Yes, please.
Right now.
Can I copy?
Right, so. That's pretty much it.
With our 3-minute recess, I'm gonna bring us back to meeting. Okay, Robert, begin, please.
All right, so I'm gonna go through our vision statements and just explain what we're doing to accomplish each of the visions. This one's about utilities are affordable, the cost to cover the cost of service. So there's a few things we look at, like the indicators, and this is one of them. The Division of Drinking Water has established what they determine as the maximum affordable culinary water bill. As based on the median adjusted gross income in Syracuse, according to our calculation, put into that is $121 a month, increased to $18 from 2 years ago. But $121 would get you, not quite 27,000 gallons a month, but most of our users are in that, I'd say within 6,000 to 8,000, maybe 10,000 a
8 to 10
month.
was the
So
high.
8 to 10.
When we did this study a few years ago, 95% of the users were below 12. So, I mean, nobody was high except for 1 or 2 people.
So this is just
I
our
probably use
tiered,
12,000 at most and not somewhere.
this is just our tiered water schedule of how it's set up. So it escalates quite a bit after that 12,000 gallons a month. So most are in that kind of $27 a month. So we're definitely well below that $121 a month. So that's good. So that shows from that area, according to Division of Water, that we are affordable. But we also have another indicator, and that's just looking at other cities for basic monthly utility bill. And this is where we would compare with a lot of the cities around us. And this actually also includes a $4 a month for the recycle. So it's already plugged in there.
So we're still cheaper.
So we're still, yes.
I got to, this was
Okay, I thought one unusual thing with this is sunset is high, and I don't think they've ever been high, but some of the differences I've just looked at in their data is, they do have a dispatch fee, and then they do have I guess that's still probably their fire since but also they have, their water fee is twice what our culinary water is. They don't have secondary water, but, then also they have, their garbage fee is 1.5 times what our garbage fee is.
They don't have secondary water, but their culinary water is about twice what it
Base
was.
rate is twice as much. Their base rate is twice as much.
Yeah, because
That's
Clearfield
wild.
too, if you look at Clearfield, they're the 3rd highest. They don't have secondary water
So
either.
secondary
They
water
water
actually
with-
keeps our rates
Lower, yeah.
So that's really what's helping us to, that and the lower water, the lower garbage rates are really what's keeping us lower. So anyway, interesting. So this is a graph of each one of our utility funds, and the bars just mean how is that money being spent, and the bullet point on each one of those bars near the top is how much revenue comes in based on our expenses. So on all of them, pretty much our expenses are slightly above our revenue, but it's not killing us because a lot of that is from the green at the tops is our depreciation funds, but we use our depreciation money into our capital projects each year. So, and then our capital varies. The capital's in yellow, and because it's on a 5-year plan, there may be years, like in the secondaries, you see, and the Class C, those are roads and secondary. We're using a lot of that with projects. Secondary because a lot of the state mandate stuff. And then, but then other years they'll kind of catch up. So, but the rest of the funds are really looking good. Blue is the amount of money that actually goes straight out to districts. So secondary culinary goes to pay for the actual cost of water that we pay from other companies, sewers, the sewer district, garbage, predominantly all of the money goes straight to contractors. So we're not really collecting, revenue and building up the fund, but it's it's healthy, it's doing well, so. So there's a little breakdown, I find.
Robert, how do you get income off of streetlights? Where does that come from?
How do you get what?
Revenue for streetlights?
There is a streetlight utility
Streetlight
fee
utility
that,
fee,
that
that's
residents
That's right.
pay.
Because we didn't have any, so that was 12 years ago.
Okay, sorry.
That is a reoccurring complaint also, that if they don't have,
We
and I
should
try
be
and
done
tell
by now.
people, it's literally in the cross streets. You have to look at the cross streets, that's where your lights are, but I don't have lights right there.
You know, there's trivia, but we had a lady coming here several years ago and say, I can't see anything in my house. There are no streetlights. And so Brigham drove to her house and there was one in the driveway. So
Well, I can-
that was when Brigham was here.
I was in my
Cross street,
neighborhood,
right across there.
and my neighbor was like, we need streetlights, and I just said,
That's what I did. That right there.
he's like, I've never noticed that. I'm
Because
like,
they expect them to be so big and bright, but we have regulations that don't allow that.
well, I mean, it
Dark sky
illuminated the
Dark
streets.
sky, yeah,
The
Yeah, they're
dark
plenty
sky
bright.
lighting makes it more ambient instead of direct.
they're just so used to seeing them that they don't see them there anymore. They just blind spot them.
So our next vision is, ensuring that we're customer service oriented. Here are ways that we measure that. We track blue stakes and fix the number of fix-its, for every year.
Utopia.
You can see, yeah, I mean, we hit an all-time high 2 years ago. And, most of that was from the Utopia installation, and then on the fringes, it's, West Day Explorer was happening at the same time too, so.
We did not care.
So, yeah, there was a lot going on there. So we're down a little bit in 2024, but it's still, 5,000 is still a lot. On our fix-its, the line looks really flat, but if you look at between 2022, so the last 2 years, we've doubled the amount of fix-its that are coming into the city. Now, this does not include code enforcement, it doesn't include parks, it's only public works. It's quite an increase, there, so.
But looking at this, how it drops off so drastically again. Hey, I feel like a lot of that really did have to do with you, because there was like 9 houses on my road alone that got their stuff messed up by Utopia. And when they came through that installation, they just did not have, the contractors did not have a lot of care with what they were doing. And I think now it's still lower than, I mean, it's gone way down lower than what it was in the past, even after that spot, before that spot.
Yeah, I expect that's going to pick back up, particularly with now that the West Davis is here. We're going to see construction and development, so we'll see that go back
What
up.
are the predominant fix-it complaints? Like, what are those 1,454 fix-its? Like, do you have a thing that people see a lot of?
Yeah, most of them, a huge majority of them are secondary water.
Interesting.
Like, I would say, more than half is secondary water.
In what regard?
A lot of them are, I need the valve. It could be as simple as I just need the valve shut off, so that I can fix my side of the system, and then another fix it. Like, okay, I'm ready for you to come turn it on. So I mean, a lot of them are just that simple. Some are like concerned about the plug line, or low pressure. And
Usually it's
we'll
dirty
go
filters.
straight out. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Dirty filters.
But we'll go out and still acknowledge it. Our days to acknowledge are usually within the 24-hour period. The DTC, that's how many days to close a ticket, and our average overall is 2.85 days. Most of the very simple things like the valve, turn the valve, off or on, that's like immediate, but there's ones that take longer. So we'll get ones for like sidewalk trip hazards, or potholes in the road, or just curb failures, like trees or whatever. So those take a little longer because you've got to plan those out, get the concrete, tear out the old stuff, put in there. It's not a immediate fix. So and then if we're cracks in the road or taking care of all. So anything that's like concrete or asphalt, those are going to take a little longer than others. So that's why the overall average for the whole year is 2.85. really pretty good, close to it.
I mean, those guys are very personable too, so if it's near someone's resident, they will definitely try to talk to the resident, and our public works guys are amazing. They're
They are.
very good people.
Another customer service thing we did last year was, this was a federal mandate. All systems in the United States of America was required to get an inventory of all privately owned service lines that are connected to the public water system. And between the public water system up to their house or business, whatever building, collect an inventory on what material is that water pipe made of. So we complied with the requirement, got full-on inventory. It took a massive undertaking with numerous departments working together. And in the end, we got no lead pipes. There's no lead pipes in Syracuse. So that really is a great thing for Syracuse. That's really rare for a whole entire water system.
Actually
That's no
surprises
lead,
me.
but that's awesome.
But even some of the roller homes, no lead there either.
There are a few older ones that have galvanized, like the oldest have galvanized, and that's not lead, and that's okay. But
It's almost anticlimactic, no? Like, you're expecting something and then there's nothing.
I'd rather have nothing. I'd rather have nothing.
Me
And
too,
no-
but you're like, well, that was, yay, you know?
No, let's move on.
Another customer service improvement we made was putting permits electronically. So, and we have two permits that we do in public works. It's the excavation and stormwater permits. This allows the applicant to actually do everything, including pay their money online remotely. So they don't have to come in at all. So this has been a huge improvement in efficiency, both on the customer's end and on the staff's side of it too. So it's been a huge customer service improvement.
Just gonna have to deal with humans.
So
There are more forms we can push into that.
there already are these are just the ones Public Works handles.
Sure,
But
I know.
There already are on planning development.
Do you have any forms that aren't electronic at this point?
That you would like.
Nope, there's nothing else.
Okay, that's good.
So,
That's what I was wondering.
hey, and then our infrastructure maintenance schedule. So first and foremost, it's no surprise that our infrastructure is expanding, growing. This is the growth we're seeing. In the last 2 years, we've seen between a 4% to a 10% growth in our infrastructure. And I imagine we'll just continue seeing the growth as long as development's happening. So we have a 5-year plan, as you know. I put it in here just to show you the plan. I didn't put it in here to kind of dial in and try to read those numbers, but obviously, if you want to really dial into it, we can do that. But we do follow a plan. This plan does get reviewed every year, updated with costs to be sure that we're still keeping on track with what the economy is doing. And we watch for when there are unique needs, like maybe developments that are happening. Let's couple that at the same time to save some money. Or like UDOT, I think it largely UDOT work is kind of
Little less than.
done. Maybe we may have a little reprieve. They now have moved a little more north, so. The other thing we do as far as maintenance plans is keep up our master plans for infrastructure. So these are public works related master plans. Our two oldest ones are the secondary and culinary water ones. Are 8 years old for the secondary. Both secondary and culinary are in stages of getting updated right now. I'll bring them to council when they're complete. You'll probably see them a little later this year. Okay, so we keep up to date with that. And also we acquired grants to help pay for a lot of projects that the city's doing. This is just from the last 2 years, what we've worked on.
We'll leave that 10 million on there.
So that was beyond, that's.
I know,
more than
I'm
2
just
years
saying.
ago. So, yeah, it is a good thing.
We got the 2000K though.
But yeah, I just left them in all A's in thousands instead of, yeah, so. The other way, the other thing we do to maintain systems is we maintain certifications. All of those required certifications are required by law. And I put the law on there just so people understand that this is not just because I want to, become something that's not required. Every one of these are required. And it's not a one-time thing. Every one of these have an expiration to recertify, typically within as low as 1 year and as high as maybe like a 3-year. So CDL is 10, but you still have to go every 2 years for a DOT physical. So the nice thing with renewing certifications is they are required to keep up to date with new laws that come into effect. And that happens pretty frequently with legislation. So we are kept up to date and certified to maintain our systems. I think that's a good brag about moment, just so you know. Okay, let's get into secondary meter conversion. So this is an overall look of how we're about 30% complete on all of our secondary water services to convert them over to a meter, putting meter on them. It's not a lot, but it is a lot of headway for just like, I mean, this is just a 6-month window, but we started a little bit before May. So we are going to continue to ramp that up, and we have our 10 million funding that runs out in October of 26, and so we're going to really ramp that effort up over this year and next year.
Have you started this year?
So yeah, they are continuing through.
Year
It's been a constant continuing. Yeah, I guess I didn't show the picture for January and February, but yeah, it's continuing. This is a picture of just our city staff alone. We do have a contractor out there working down, but so I separated this as just our city staff because I want to see what their effort has been. And the real thing I want to point out is the peak. So our peak has been about 75 services in a 1-month period. And that was during summer. We got both June and July have been some pretty high months. Reason for that is because we brought on 3 seasonals to help us out with that effort, and they did very, very good job. The seasonals, left by August, and we really had a low there, but they kind of picked up. So one of the things that was mentioned in the budget opening is we want to get more seasonals for this year. It's paid completely from that grant, so it's a net zero out of pocket for Syracuse. So we're expecting to see each summer.
It is summer.
What?
This is fall spring.
I know. From this, it was 60 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I see.
Second winter, summer.
Yeah, second.
This is a picture of our secondary meter crew right now. Putting in meter pit in a place. And so, like I mentioned before, we're looking at 4 seasonals and targeting completion October 26. So we want to maximize our staffing efficiency there by once after October 26, rather than letting go of the full-time workers, not seasonal, but full-time workers, we would look at reassigning them to other public works divisions. It's right there. So whether it's streets, environmental, or sewer.
They look cold.
So yeah, that was
Probably not the best
actually-
picture, like I feel bad for
It
them.
was actually
What do
a
you think?
very, very cold day, like bitter.
They're
cold.
like-
Wasn't even that long ago. So
All of them have their hoods up,
they work whether it's cold or hot.
clearly.
The next 4 slides, I'll go through just pretty quick. They're just pictures, snapshot pictures of just some of the work that's been done over the last year. Some of these pictures were in managers reports anyway, so you can recognize it. This one, you see water testing, you see that bubbling up water, that's a water leak, from a main underground. Um, Just, installing one. Street maintenance that go from, snow plowing to fixing roads, whether it's patching or crack sealing, sidewalks, you see sidewalk repair, and, in the top left, you see head crossings. These are push button hybrid. We did a record number of those this year alone. So we have a total of 14 locations with these, 10 were done in 2024. So,
I love those things.
I love those. I think we should put those lots.
they've been a really, really good thing, to have. I really feel like we've become more of a pedestrian friendly community with these. They do take, some maintenance, on them, but we're willing to do that.
They get your attention for sure.
On environmental, this is our storm drain, ditches, and sewer maintenance. There's just a few pictures there. The bottom, left is the Diamond Ranches one. So, on the right, you see some, fog testing, where we'll check for cross connections. So
There's no fog in that picture.
Right there at the bottom of the.
there is some.
Right.
I know.
All right, I
I
thought,
was being hilarious.
yeah,
Hilarious.
Oh, yeah. All right. Facility maintenance, this is just, looking at our city buildings. In center one, you see the new generator coming into the police, department for the EOC center. That was a really big deal, and that was very exciting. On the left, you see a couple of ADA improvements. The top was the restriping of the museum. Middle center one is, there's a new push button door activated, on the museum now. So that's awesome. Yes, there is. And then,
I'll let you know how it works.
yeah. And then the city hall on the bottom, got a new railing. It didn't have a railing before now. So,
I think one of the PD does not work.
and then on the right side is the zero scape, and then the house that the city bought to take down. So, okay, goals. This is my last slide. So I grouped goals into different categories. One is, we're offering a new service, which is recycling. So a goal would be to work through the logistics of actually getting those carts out. We know that there's going to be carts coming back. There's going to be a lot of shoveling back and forth. But we are, preparing for that.
So I actually have the rest of the big chat and say, is there a way for them to, like, who do they contact if the cart's not gonna work? They said they're fine with the fee, but they wanna know, is there a way to prevent the cart from coming in the first place? Or do we want to just, are they gonna have to call once it's already?
Yeah, the cart is going to go regardless, and then there's information asking everyone to at least keep it for 30 days. And then they can call into the city and we'll pick it up if it's.
What is the rationale for keeping it?
Hopefully they'll use it.
It was just to give them an opportunity to see if it's something that they.
Test drive.
Yeah, test drive.
It's a paid drive.
Yeah.
There's a few reasons they did it. They said there's a better take rate if you deliver it and see if they'll actually use it and divert some of the materials into it. Also, so it allows you to launch the program. If there were any houses that were missed, then they can get those cans. You'll also get a wave of cans being returned. As people say, hey, now we can recycle.
You don't want the second can.
Yes, so then during that time frame that they're using it and deciding whether or not to keep it, then they can return those second cans, if they essentially want to for left, and then the third is, then once that 30 days passes, or then they can just return the cards.
I've been trying to confirm that there's no fee to return the second black can. Because I was told that a long time ago, when I first moved in. I said, screw it, I'll sweep it.
Is there?
There was a normal.
There's, the only fee we charge is if you get it, like a green can or a second black can, and try and return it before 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So there's a requirement to keep it for 6 months, so it's a $35 return fee. Other than that, we're not charging for the can.
Okay.
And for the recycle cart, there won't be a return.
You won't do that.
So what I think we need to do is start that process now, because if people said, okay, I want to arrange to have my second car picked up. When the blue can is dropped off, and I realize the same person is going to do that, with different companies dropping them off. But for those people who are concerned that they can't fit a second time at their house, maybe that would kind of ease the tension.
Yeah, so there is something on our Fix It, See-Click Fix, that will allow people to just input themselves if they want cans added or want us to take them away.
So is that the process?
So
Fix it,
that
not
would
call
be-
Holly?
Yeah, Fix It.
Either.
They can call, but they can also do Fix It online.
So I feel like that 30 days that they're putting out there is, I did a little test, because like I said, I told you that I need it no brainer, like I need to know what I can throw in and what I can't, and then just put it on there and then I'll follow the rules. So I did a little test this last 2 weeks in my own household, and we separated things that would go to recycling and things that wouldn't, and we only threw away 1 bag of trash that wouldn't go in recycling. So for people who, and we don't normally go through a lot of trash anyway, but for people who feel like they will not use this can, I was shocked to see how much we would actually put into that can as opposed to the black one. And how much people don't realize the majority of stuff that they're throwing away really is recyclable. So it was shocking for us to see it in my house, because like I said, we don't really go through a lot of garbage in our household. But for the amount that we were using, it made a huge difference. So when people call and say, well, I understand the space, but oh, we'll never use this, we'll just use the 30 days to give it a shot. That's what I would tell them. You might be surprised on how much you might actually use it. And
I'm just excited to get rid of a pile of cardboard in my garage.
Amazon boxes. Anybody else? No? Your wives?
A lot of it is packaging, right?
Yeah.
Plastics and cardboards
I
and-
wish I had a wife.
Plastics.
I wish I had a wife. My life would be so much easier with a wife. Or
They
so much.
Aluminum or ferrous, either way.
Do they require that you take the wrappers off the cans and also
No.
rinse off and rinse out the cans?
I don't know about rinsing.
They do ask that you rinse so that it doesn't contaminate the other.
Like
goods.
you're cleaning
Rinse and
stuff.
dry.
And let me
But
tell
yeah,
you,
if you have a can of
you have to
beans,
rinse
just
every
rinse it out
tuna
and dry it.
can, every mayonnaise bottle.
You know, they will take it either way.
Yeah, I don't
It-
think they're expecting.
It would be nice if, yeah.
I think their machines understand the human existence, and
I know, like.
we're not doing
Yeah,
that.
it is neat though. I honestly,
It is pretty neat to watch.
if you get a minute,
To go there.
go and check out that MRF, because it is one neat piece of engineering technology. Like,
Pretty impressive.
like I said, I put this in my post, like, I had no idea what an eddy current was until I went there. And like, they are, like, my whole life, I've always thought that you could not affect aluminum with a magnet, but they use eddy currents, and you see that aluminum can go fly off into the bin.
Science.
Everyone should go watch that thing, because it's cool.
Science class kid.
And folks, that's why we have recycling.
My next category I had was
Yeah.
improved services, okay? So my goal for improving services is, for our water use, is to have software available for it, for people who are interested in knowing how much water they use. Now, this is for indoor and outdoor. We have already, through a grant, a contract with Weaver Basin to set up the software for us. They haven't started working on it, but they are going to get it done this year, is what we're being told. So probably sometime later this year. I don't have an ETA on that yet, but so that will allow people to log in, create a login, get in, and see what their water use is. They can also set up notifications for, say, like if they're out of town, they can get a notification if there's like water that's continually running. Is it a leak? Is someone else using it? What's going
I
on?
feel like this is dad reassurance. You know,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
thermostat,
Yeah.
like check our water, make sure
Yes,
the kids aren't going
or,
crazy.
or like the smart clock, you know, I mean, it's just being able to know what's going on, but, you know, before you get a water bill and find out, wow, I've got a lot of, you know, I got a big water bill, what happened? Maybe there was a toilet leaking, but you can catch it first before you actually get the bill, so.
Kids are eating the faucet.
Listen, I support the dad theory. I do.
So there's a lot of good things with the water use software, we'll be rolling out. I'll give you more, information as that happens. Reservoir pump installation, so the new reservoir is called Syracuse Reservoir. So, that has 2 pumps in it. I brought it to council, you guys approved it. I can do 2 more pumps there. It's out to bid now. We'll get a total of 4 pumps, and that'll really bring a lot of water, use out of that reservoir, sending out to the system. That'll be a really great thing. So that's an improved service. And City Hall LED light conversion, this is 100% paid by grant. Now, federal has put a hold on that for now until they work through whatever they gotta work through on the federal end. So I'm just waiting for that green light, and then we can go forward with this. We've already done the first step of it, which is to do the energy efficiency audit. So that's done. Rocky Mountain Power actually came in and did that. So the second part is just actually bid it out. So, of course, I'll give you info on when that happens.
They had an estimated
That's-
savings on that. You know what the number was?
Yeah, it's about 150,000.
Yeah.
So.
In a year?
No, just it's a one time. Oh,
No,
are you talking
no.
annual energy
Yeah.
savings? Oh, sorry.
Now it's like 27 or
I
something.
mean, 150K a year?
No, no, it's
27
not
million.
that
Talk
much.
about those pumps, when he's talking about savings, it gets very excited.
I don't remember. There is an annual
It
savings
was actually,
ongoing
it was
for
actually,
energy.
it was actually significant.
Yeah. I think it was somewhere in the 20s.
Not to pay for a drone show.
Yeah, hey,
It
listen,
might.
whenever Robert's talking about these.
Sorry.
So what were your next one?
Okay, next
I think
category.
it was it, wasn't it?
I'm looking at this is my last category. I'm looking at ways to increase efficiencies in the department. And I have 3 things here. Traffic data collection. So there are times, where people will call in or fixers will come in, people, concerned about, speeding in the neighborhoods. And it is, we have a way that we can collect data, but it's after the fact, and then we go in, we collect data for a week, and then review it, determine whether a change needs to happen. And maybe it doesn't need to happen, but maybe their perception is, this is happening now. So I know there's different ways to collect data, traffic data. I haven't really looked much into it. I figured I'm going to take your lead on how, but I can bring some things into a budget, and you can mix it if you don't want to, or keep it or whatever. So I will explore that a little bit more just to see what different options are out there. Okay.
And you're saying for traffic or for speeding?
Collecting traffic data, speed,
It's
volume, it's usually speeds and volumes. So, yeah.
People get a little carried away on smaller roads and it just becomes a trend and then they just, until they realize that there's a speed study going on, then they'll start slowing down. So you can see that box sitting there.
Yeah. So, next one down, I've already mentioned 4 seasonals for secondary meters. This is, I think, a no-brainer. It's paid by a grant. And we'll,
If we have a grant that expires in a year, maybe we ought to bump that even further so that we can use the grant. I would hate to lose any part of it.
yeah. So our city engineers looked at it pretty good for the amount that 4 seasonals can do in relation to what contractors can do. And then and we'll be able to maximize what we have with going forward. We can do more, but we feel it.
And Mayor, we're also putting out another bid for a third contract. We kind of went through, figured out how many it would take to finish with our guys versus contract, and that's that third contract.
Well, some they don't
The
need,
standard that
they don't need to
government-
deliver them to my house anymore.
That was true.
What?
All right, something different.
Let's talk about expanding.
The last thing I have on there is to expand public works facility within, this would be by like the year 2030. So we are really tight there, and it's real sad when you see a snow plow that breaks down in the middle of a cold winter and they can't even fit it in a maintenance bay with, without taking off the plow and the salt spreader, but you're not going to do that because you still need to use it. So frozen fingers, trying to turn wrenches, it's just And not only that, but even their through quarters are very, very tight. So I'm not saying now, I'm not saying this year, it's not something I'm putting in the budget. This is just kind of a longer range projection, so you can have an idea of maybe what the.
I feel it's not as long as you may
It's
think it is,
maybe-
because
I say long, yeah.
you're very accommodating to the city and the budget on how you're going about this, but if any of you have the time to go over there, it's like a clown car. I hate to say it, but it's so tight in that building, and like the fire department is too, but they're getting another building, they got a new building, that's why, but those guys are kind of, it's adorable.
The expected savings on the light conversion is 15,000.
And they use the fire base.
They're using space that they would normally have like
For
for storage and things like that. And they've kind of pushed everything to a corner that's just stacked on itself so they can use that for office space. So they're not all stacked up in the offices and the bays are full and they're out of space there.
I
Big
would
time.
invite any of you, if you wanted to come down, just give me a shout or just show up and I'll walk you around.
Mr. Darrell Webb had like 5 new guys just packed up in his office. They all had a chair, they each had a chair.
Anyway, so that's just on the table there, just so that you're aware before it comes, so I don't just come to a meeting and say, okay, we're ready to extend. And you've had no clue.
I feel like that should probably be on there already, but that's my opinion.
All right, that's the last of it.
Thank you, Robert.
Any input, questions?
Who we at as we go, you know.
Question, idea.
Whatever you do for the
What do I
next
do?
rest of the day.
Please help.
Okay, I'm gonna move us on to item G, which is involving Utah Department of Transportation. First one is discussion regarding reimbursement of equipment, purchase and snow removal, or for snow removal, we already did that. Or, let's just talk about it briefly, because I think this could actually go on a consent agenda. We want to be reimbursed.
Yeah, this all dates back to the design of the West Davis Highway. During the design, we brought issues forth, indicating we were gonna have a tough time with snow removal on the pedestrian bridge over by SAA, that goes over the highway. Just because of the angles of the approach to the bridge. And at that time, they indicated that they would rather help us out some other way than redesign it, because they'd have to acquire more property. So we came back and said, remember what you said, and they reminded them, and they said, yeah, we'll keep our word on that.
Sure, they're gonna buy us some
So-
equipment.
So that,
We
yeah,
already bought it.
yeah, we bought it, this is a reimbursement, it's $40,000.
What do we get sometime?
Yeah, and it's a Ventrac, so we can also use it along the trail. It's multiple.
Nice.
Yeah, well, it's got a technique and throw snow.
Okay, so our discussion item is just that we want to approve submitting the reimbursement. So,
Well, yeah.
so let's move on to
Just go on
discussion.
consent.
Quicker the better.
Yes, that consent agenda for items G1. G2, discussion regarding proposed resolution acknowledging maintenance responsibilities and for aesthetic improvements at the West Davis corridor intersections. Again, I think this is another consent item because we've been negotiating all of the details and we just need to sign that contract, but we need a vote of the council to do it.
Yeah, this is just, they wanted like an affirmative vote from the council that will maintain whatever we build there.
And so that's what's holding up building it at the moment is that we just need to do that to get that done.
Okay.
So that'll be on the consent agenda as well. The only thing that I want to conclude this meeting with is we did hear from public comment, some concern over the recycling. And it's been mentioned throughout the meeting. It seemed to come up in several discussion items. This is up to you, council. So if 3 of you support it, I will put it on a future agenda for ironing out any details that you think can be revisited. Or if you choose that we are firm and there's no more discussion, your choice.
So this is about the opt-out, and should we give that as an option?
I think we should discuss an opt-out for a couple of reasons. But I don't want to have a discussion now. It would have to be a future agenda. So I'm hearing one is willing to revisit details. Is there anybody else? We're shorthanded with Paul already, so.
I'll say yes.
let's see that text message then. Show it.
So the one area, no, I think we should keep it as a bundle. But
I'm not saying we should change that. I'm saying that we should have a little bit more discussion and advertise it, because there are people who are saying there was no discussion, and there was over an entire year. I've always defended that. But I think that there are elements we could revisit.
So that I agree with. In order to get the full rebate, so I mean, switching from bundled to an opt-out would be probably, I think I did some quick math and it was like $50,000 impact. So you'd have to change your budget opening for the cans. Because you're gonna be paying more for them.
I'm not going to debate that, but I will tell you that today, I have Mayor Petro received an award, so several of us mayors went to the meeting where she received the award for our lunch. That was my lunch break to go from work. And I was approached by a couple of the other mayors. Mayor Vincent from West Point said that you only have to have 80% to get the maximum bundle discount. If that's true or not, I don't know. But if that's the case, he said we have well over 80% from the opt, or with even using an opt-out. Mark Shepard, who sat next to me, concurred. He says we have almost 90% in, but we did allow for an opt-out. They both mocked me and said, your city's making us look good because you have no opt-out. And
They should fix their roads and then they can talk.
again,
Look, I'm defending
my
you.
own, yeah. My only point is, I think that it's worth at least having the discussion. I'm not sure that I agree we need to make a change, but so many people have brought up the opt-out that it probably is worth the discussion.
So the opt-out is actually a classification, not a percentage. So I think there's some of that up. It's how your ordinance is written is what defines an opt-out versus
my only concern, I'm not concerned about opting out of the fee, because I think that if it makes sense for the city on the budget, you can make that decision. My only concern is there are people who have called my cell because it's published online and threatened that they will throw anything but recyclables in there in protest. That's certainly not going to help anything. That makes our recycling tainted. So my point is, if you have somebody who's absolutely going to refuse to use it, let them say no. I'm not saying waive the fee, just let them say they don't want the can.
what we need to do, and again, let's have a discussion.
Yeah.
I'm okay bringing up having a discussion because I can see some areas. One of the things that brought up that I had not considered is some HOAs do not allow you to have visible cans. And so I think we do need to make some allowed, but again, we can talk about that at a future agenda item. We can't do it here.
So if you're agreeing and you're agreeing to have one more that will agree to at least put it on, okay, done.
Yeah,
It's on a future agenda and we'll talk about it. There's no commitment to make a change, but it'll be on a future agenda. All right. Other than that, is there any other pressing items that I've forgotten before I declare us adjourned? At 8:27?